Welcome to the Juice Radio Talk Show. 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 Reality TV's church reviews. Let's talk happy love and marriage lifestyle. Come and talk with us. Come and share with us. Come and laugh with us. Come on and pray with us.
Regina Cole is a special guest. You should be following your lead. Bless. Subscribe on YouTube. Listen on podcasts. We live on IG and Facebook. This episode is sponsored by Truth and Triumph Ministries.
Good day, everyone, and happy Monday. This is Pastor Tawana Grant, and I am your host for the Money Monday Lunchtime Learning. I am so excited to have you with us on today. So please go ahead and like and share. If you're on the Juice Radio and Talk Show YouTube, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. We're excited as we've been continuing in our series for this particular month. We've been talking about making sure that we ensure our posture for our financial alignment. We've talked about audit. We've talked about alignment, and now we're still continuing in our advancement. So for the month of March, we have really been talking about finishing out our first quarter well, right? Can you believe it? We're already at the end of March, and we're getting ready to close out the month. And so we want to make sure that we are managing our finances. So for today, we're talking about process and profit. We want to ensure that we put systems in place that protect your money. Listen, we don't want to work this hard and then have leakage and have money that is going into places that are not advancing us in our financial posture. So again, thank you for joining us for our lunchtime learning. This is Money Monday. Want to say welcome, Stephanie. Welcome, Lady Virgo. And those of you who are joining us, if you are watching us later on replay, make sure you type into the chat or on YouTube replay so we can make sure that we acknowledge that you attended and that you gained the valuable information today. So I'm excited. I really am. Week number 1, we talked about audit, looking at our numbers. Week number 2, we talked about how we're aligned in leadership. We talked about you as a leader, making sure that we are posturing ourselves to move forward. And we want to make sure that we give enough room in our capacity to be able to obtain our goal. So we talked about all the time, rest is a strategy. And so even as a leader, we want to make sure that you are fueled and that you have enough gas to get where you're going. Listen, you don't start out on a trek or on a journey and don't make sure you check the gas meter, right? You want to make sure that you have enough to make it. So welcome, Yo-Yo K. We're glad to have you with us today. So today we're addressing something that most organizations overlook, because here's the truth: systems matter. The things that we put in place. I was just talking with leaders this weekend, how we manage and how we staff our organization, our business, our ministry matters to longevity, right? You're just not starting to start. You're starting for the long term, leaving a legacy. And so this is generational. So we want to make sure that most financial problems are not always revenue. It's not always revenue. Sometimes they are process problems. Sometimes it's how we do things. Ensuring that we have the right people in the right place to manage what we're doing is key. So let's say this clearly. If money is leaving your organization faster than it should, if things feel disorganized, if you feel like you're operating from a place of urgency and emergencies all the time, if you're consistently reacting instead of leading, you don't really have a money problem. You have a systems problem. How do we put systems in place that help us to manage what we are doing, what we're called to do, what we're gifted and talented to do? You still have to have a system in place to make sure that you're maximizing and that you're making significant impact. So here we want to talk about the reality is money loves structure. That's why we talk about budget. That's why we talk about write the vision, make it plain, having a plan. Why? Because money follows structure. Money follows where there is clarity, where there's order, where there's accountability, where there's consistency. But here's what happened. Money leaks when there's confusion, when there's duplication, when there's lack of oversight. when there is a emotional decisioning instead of a money financial perspective to making decisions. So today we're going to walk through just a few things of how we can build systems that protect our money. We want to protect it, that will preserve our vision, and that will position our organizations to grow. So whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you're a business owner, whether you are a ministry leader, these are application applicable standards that you can put in place today to help you to understand where you're going and protect the money, protect what you're doing. So here, budgeting is not optional. It is foundational. I hear some people say, oh, I feel so restricted. No, these are the healthy boundaries that are necessary to ensure that you reach your goal, to make sure that you have measurement so that they're SMART goals, they're measurable, they are attainable, they're realistic. Sometimes when we have a budget, it helps us to understand, is that target really realistic for first quarter? Is that something that really needs a half a year, needs 6 months in order to execute and be done well? We talk about all the time, not perfect, but done well. Excellence. We want to do it in excellence to our best capability. So here, if you don't have a working budget, you are not leading financially, you are guessing. If you don't have a budget in place, if you don't have structure in place, you're not leading financially, you are guessing, you're hoping. You're standing from the seat of expectation, but you want to have a hope for something, but you also plan for it. The Bible talks about what man goes into war without weighing up the cost. There is a cost to everything. And so here, a real budget is not simply ones you create once a year and you ignore it. No, a real budget is one that you operate from daily. You're operating from it from a weekly perspective. You're operating from it from a monthly perspective. A operating budget is reviewed monthly. It is adjusted quarterly. And sometimes depending on your demand, depending on the field that you're in, depending on your industry, you're looking at it even more closely. Some industries are monthly based. And so if you don't hit your monthly target, then you're off base for the next several months. So that is not the type of business where you only want to review where you are at the end of the month. It's too late. Some of the businesses, you've got to be looking at it daily and weekly. That's why it's so important that you evaluate what type of industry you're in, what is the cash flow, inflow, what is the expenses, because if a month matters strategically for your business, then monthly review is too late. You have to be looking at trends and where you're going on a weekly basis, if not daily. I look at some of our business, some of our accounts every day in the morning, after you pray, after you thank the Lord and you spend time in meditation and you get ready to go out into this day to operate. Some of the first things you have to do as an entrepreneur, as a ministry leader, is understand where you are. Where am I today? I have ministry leaders that send me reports that on Sunday to let me know, where did we end the day? Wednesday, where did we end the day? Where are the people at? Where is our guests? Whether it's membership. If you're looking at your operations within your industry, within your business, you're looking at that every day. You want to know when people are out sick. Sometimes that will help you understand why you don't have allocation or why you didn't produce as much this day as you had intended. Sometimes the idea that some of the capacity wasn't available because people were out. But if you're not giving it enough attention, you don't know where you're leaking from. And so this is why the real budget is so important, because you can adjust quarterly or more frequently as needed, depending on your industry, and then tied to your actual operations. These numbers are tied to what you're actually doing every day. How do you thread it so that you can really understand where you're winning and where you have gaps? Why? Because your budget should clearly show you expected revenue, fixed expenses, things that you know you're going to have to pay every month. Fixed expenses, variable expenses, where things fluctuate. If you've been in business for any a period of time, if you've been through at least 2 or 3 seasons, you understand where there are trends, where there is high spend for your product or service, and then where there is a lower spend on certain products and services, so that you understand how to pivot and how to adjust your budget. Saving targets. You understand where you are in your saving targets because you are evaluating your budget, because you are looking at the numbers, because budget is not optional. It is foundational to moving the mission forward. And so here it also lets you know where you at for a point of growth for investments. Where are we now that we're solidified and we're able to maintain our operational effectiveness and our operational costs and expenses, so that now I can start looking at growth investments? Where do I want to start putting some element or percentage of what we have as revenue, our profit, right? So there's a difference between revenue and profit. Profit is what you have over after you've taken out all of your expenses. So where can I now start applying some growth investments? And here's where most leaders miss it. Your budget should reflect your priorities. The budget should identify so that your spending matches the vision and the mission. Your vision is not leading, your habits are. So sometimes it will show you that I'm not really leading based on my vision and mission. I'm actually leading by my habits. Our behaviors will show you if you're on target and on goal. That is the thing. Am I on target? Am I spending on goal? Am I pushing forward the mission and vision that I'm called to do for this particular season and time in our financial structure? Point number 2, approval process. Every dollar needs to be accountable. Ooh, I can tell you, our financial staff, they are reviewing and evaluating every dollar spent. Why? Because it does matter. One of the fastest ways for your organization to lose money is through uncontrolled spending. You cannot be an emotional purchaser. You cannot be an emotional spender. You cannot be a reactionary leader. You cannot lead from that posture and want to be successful. You have to be one that look at the data and look at the numbers and stay very closely aligned. And these are your healthy boundaries that you have. Some people, again, say it's very restrictive. Then you've got to grow to have discipline. A good leader is disciplined in aspects of financial infrastructure for your business or your ministry. Why? Because if anyone can spend without structure, money will slowly creep and slowly slip and slowly leak through these cracks when we don't have an approval process. So here what you need to have a clear spending threshold. Sometimes we open up the floodgates. Sometimes we open up the bank checkbook and we've opened up the credit card and we've let people freely spend. Even in your organization, even in your hierarchy, there are levels of spend. Even in my marketplace where I work in corporate America, there is a level of spend that is dependent upon the person and dependent upon the level and dependent on the accountability and the responsibility that you have. Some people may start off with a lower corporate spend than others would. You need to evaluate from that same perspective, whether you are in your business operating or in your ministry. Everyone does not have liberty to spend. There's an accountability for the spend. So there's a spend threshold. Here, you also want to make sure that there's an approval workflow, that it doesn't just stop with you. There's approval process so that there's others who are mindful of where you are all the time. They're called to evaluate. They're called to be the watchman on the wall for the finances of your ministry or for your operations, for your business. And therefore, they should be the ones. Let me just say this, leader. I know you say you're the pastor, you want to be the last book, but it really aligns to what you're doing. And we should always give an ear to the people who have gifted in that area and who are also the watchmen on the wall to protect us. We're talking about today protecting your money, protecting the future, protecting the investment, protecting where people have put money in. Some of you are in entrepreneurship. You have investors who have put money into your vision. They're expecting you to be a good adjudicator for what they have given you. They're giving you the permission to use their funding, their investment in your business. Now you have to have the integrity and character to operate from that posture of knowing that I've been giving a great responsibility. And so even in that, when you have shareholders, you have stakeholders, they have a voice in the decisioning of the business. And you have to be willing to listen because they have just as much on the line sometimes as some of us do. So here you got to have documented policies. If it is not documented, it's just you having a conversation. They'll tell you in the law. In law, it needs to be written. Otherwise, it's just your word against someone else's. So there needs to be a documented process and procedure so that others understand the role and how it operates. So for example, expenses under a certain amount may be approved at one level. So if it's $20, you might not need the president to look at it, right? So again, you have to evaluate whether there's some thresholds that will eliminate people becoming a roadblock or a stopgap. if there's a threshold of $100. It depends on where you are in your business. It depends on where you are in your ministry. It might be a point where you want to evaluate every spend. There are others that should be doing that. People who are in the financial aspects, those who are called to make sure that they are operating from that capacity, they should be looking at everything. But there are other levels of approval that might not require a full spectrum of signatures in order to get it to move through. So again, larger expenses require additional oversight. When there's a larger spend, you need more. The Bible talks about in the company of many, there's safety. So sometimes you need the other voices of others who can evaluate and make sure that that is the right spend for now, that it makes sense to do now, because a lot of times we're operating from a particular financial perspective. And so it is not limitless. We have to be able to make sure that we are good when we're operating on behalf of others. And we want to make sure that we are aware of where spending is happening. So you don't want to be so far away from what's happening from a financial perspective. Yes, we do give others liberty. Yes, we do give others autonomy, and we empower them. That is a good way to develop your leaders. But you cannot expect what you don't inspect. We've got to be close enough that we know where we are, and so that we know that we're following on our plan, our vision, and the trajectory is going straight, or do we need to pivot? So again, this is not about control. This is about stewardship. You cannot steward what you don't manage. You cannot steward well what you don't manage. Oh, that's good. So you've got to make sure that you're paying attention and you're giving the appropriate time, because when money is not tracked, it is not respected. Understand? It is a respect to check it, to give attention to it, to monitor it, to watch it, to give it to. It's just like having a child. You don't just let them go off to their own selves and just raise themselves. No, anything could happen. The same as where we put our value in. The undergirding of your business is based on the financial stability. And so you've got to give it the time to track it, because if you're not willing to track it, if you're not willing to put the time in, if you're not willing to put any effort into it, this might be a hobby, not a business. Okay, let's just say this. This might be a hobby, not a business. If you're running a business, then you want to steward it well. Point number 3, cash flow. Cash flow management. Know what is moving and when. You have to know where cash flow is happening. Profit is important, but cash flow is survival. You want to make a profit, yes, your profit margin. You want to have more coming in than you have expenses going out. But the flow of it is the life and breath of the business. It's got to be some residual based on what you're putting out. You're getting something come back in. There has to be a reward to your effort. There has to be a reward. There has to be a payback on all of the effort, the return on your investment, the time on your energy, the time on your strength. Maybe you're an innovator. Maybe you're creative. Maybe you're a consultant. And what you're giving is your experience and your knowledge. There needs to be a payback on that. So there has to be a residual cash flow of in and out. So that also means you can be profitable on paper and still struggle financially if your cash flow is not managed well. You can be profitable on paper. A lot of people come in, and I heard one financial gentleman, he was talking about having clients come into his office, and when they're on the phone, they talk about all that they had and everything that they had going on. He said, but when they come in with the receipts and they put the paper on the table, that's really what tells you where you are financially. What is your financial health? It is based on the numbers. Again, we're moving away from guessing, hoping, and wishing. All right, business leaders. All right, ministry leaders, we're moving away from that posture, and we are being a posture of a good steward. So what we must know is what is coming in and what is going out, and when is it happening. Cadence matters. Timing matters. Sometimes you can get a big flow in of a client, but it also matters, do you have the product in order to service them? So that's what we are saying. Sometimes we live on just in time. Some of our business are just like that. When you get a big order in, we're order based, just in time. When we get a big order in, now we have the influx of our investment and our funding needed to order the item or the product. And then therefore we return out the product based on what's been ordered. And that's great. So again, timing is crucial. You got to know when it's happening, and you've got to be prepared. So this means tracking receivables weekly. What's coming in, what's going out weekly. Following up on outstanding payments. Sometimes we're leaking because we're not making sure our payables, our accounts payables, are returning in the funds that we are due. Sometimes our bank account is low, not because we didn't do the work, not because we didn't deliver our services, not because we didn't produce the product and deliver it to our customer, but because our customer didn't pay us. Sometimes we're running a business or we're in an industry where we're on a net 30 or net 60 or net 90. And if you're not monitoring and managing, ensuring that that check arrives, that account is not growing, that account is not multiplying, it is staying stagnant or it is reducing. It is likely reducing because you're still sending money out. You're still paying expenses. You're still running your business and paying your employees, but you're not getting the payables back in. So again, that means monitoring your outstanding payments, what is due back to you, and planning for large expenses in advance. You've got to be planning in advance. Do you all hear a lot of that today? Advance notice, giving attention, being prepared, operating from a posture of proactiveness, not reactive. And so here, strong leaders do not wait for surprises. Do you all hear that today? We're not waiting on surprises. We are planning for movement. We are planning for things to happen. We have great expectation, and we are planning against it. So we are ready when it happens. That's what it says in Isaiah 60:22. And when the time is right, the Lord would do it, but you don't wait until he does it. You are praying and believing and occupying until he comes, occupying until he show up, being ready in advancement, preparing for what is coming next. So here, internal controls, they protect the organization from within. You got to put these kind of controls in place because it's going to protect you from within. This is critical, especially for ministries and growing organizations. You've got to have internal controls in place. You need systems that will help us protect against error where there's error, protect against mismanagement, help us protect against unknown risk or planned risk, things that could happen. So internal controls could look like no single person handling the money alone. Oh, can I do a clap on that? No single person handling the money alone. That is a control. Regular reconciliation of accounts, meaning having your review and making sure you're doing your checks and balances, making sure you're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. That reconciliation can help you identify and reveal where you might have some gaps, where there's leakage, where there's cracks, where there's missing controls that need to be refined or added. So that reconciliation of accounts is important. Separation of duties. We do that everywhere. We do that even in the marketplace. So in your operation and your SOP, your standard operating procedures, you want to make sure that there's a separation of duties. So that makes sure that there's a review and a cycle of what is happening, so that if one person is doing, another person has eyesight, they have awareness so that they can capture where there might be error or where there might be some corrective opportunities there. And then we want to document our financial procedures. We want to craft it in such a way that it is written and others can follow, that is written and others can understand. We're writing the vision, we're writing the procedures, we're writing our practices down, and we're making them a standard. You know why it's so important to make things a standard? Because they're repeatable. It doesn't matter if the same person is there or not. When you have written procedures, anybody can sit down and they can follow it. It makes it easier to rinse and repeat. It makes it easier to facilitate when others are out of place. If all of the information is in one person's head, it is difficult to do anything without that person being in place. And you don't want to run your organization and be single-threaded. It is dangerous to the life and breath of what you're trying to do. You want to make sure that others are trained and others has capacity and others can step in. Why? Because we're multiplying what we're doing. We're multiplying our ability and our capacity because we want to multiply our revenue. So here we want to make sure it's documented. So let me say plainly, trust is not a system. I know we trust people. Yes, we do. I know we love people. Yes, we do. But you can trust people and still build a strong structure. You can trust people and still put operating procedures in place. You can still trust people and make sure that you have protected your money. So here, in fact, structure protects not just your money, it protects the people. One of the reasons why we want to make sure that we have coverage and oversight and people who are involved outside of just the one CEO, outside of just the pastor, others who are responsible and have their hands to the plow, because it protects you as a leader. When you have other voices who are looking to protect your back too. They're not wanting to let you just step out on a limb by yourself. They want to make sure that what you're doing is appropriate. What you're doing is you're doing it in integrity and in good character. They are watching out for the business just as much as you are. So point number 5, automation. Stop managing what technology can handle. I know some people don't want to use AI and other things of that nature, but your systems, when they are managed, and they are manual, rather, growth is limited. When it's manual, when you're managing it via manual operating cadences and mechanisms, it limits your ability to get things done fast and quickly and for efficiency. So here we need automation where possible, where it makes sense, so that for reoccurring bills, for reoccurring transfers, for saving transfers, for expense tracking, for reporting dashboards, you can see things quickly. You can know the health of where you are. You can be able to see scoreboards that help you make a more data-driven decisions more effectively. If it takes you a month to get a report out, you need to move to automation. If it takes you a week to pull the numbers together, you must move to automation. You are slowing down your capacity to revenue. You are slowing down your capacity to move and to grow. You're slowing down your operation to accelerate and move forward. So here, automation creates consistency. Automation will help you create and curate accuracy. It's more accurate. Not to say it is perfect. So that's why you have to also make sure you're checking, but it also helps to eliminate human error. So here, accuracy is more increased, and of course, efficiency. And if it frees your time to focus on strategy instead of administration, it is a win. It is a win for you. It is a win for your team. It is a win for those who are operating on the vision to be able to move to strategy in other areas where their attention could be better leveraged and more efficient and effective than crunching things that could be done through automation. So here, point number 6 is that we want to make sure that we intentionally have an expense discipline. Every dollar needs to have a purpose. Everything that we spend in our organization or in our ministry, it needs to be able to have an intention to grow. Expenses tend to grow with them. So when you grow the ministry or when you grow your organization, your expenses tend to grow too. But growth without discipline leads to instability. So again, we need to regularly evaluate where we are doing some subscription, our vendors, whether we're at a good price point, whether we're making the right decisions with them and what we're purchasing and when we're purchasing it, our service costs, the service providers that we're leveraging. We want to make sure that we're doing that from efficiency, operational spending. So we need to ask ourselves, sometimes we just need to sit and ask the team, is this really necessary? Is this necessary now? Is this going to produce value to what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go for this season? Because if you're like me, we're planning things for next year right now. Yes, different teams and different small groups and different organizations, we're already looking at what we're going to do next. So is it a spend that you need to do now, or are you planning so that it is on the books for next year? Is it on the books for 2 years from now? So you got to ask yourself, is this going to produce me the value I need right now? Then can this be reduced or renegotiated? Ask. You know, sometimes you have not because you ask not. I went out looking for some things. We were doing some purchases for ministry, and I had Regina with us. You all know her, the CEO of the Juice Radio and Talk Show. And I tell you, she was going to work. We were with the vendor and we were trying to purchase and procure some items. And she was like, listen, is that the best price you can give me? Can we look at this from, we're going to buy 2 of those. What's the best price you can get? Listen, do not feel that diminishes you or make you look bad because you want to negotiate. No, that's what a business person does. They talk from the numbers perspective. And so here you want to look at, can we look at reduction or do we talk about renegotiating? And so just because we signed a contract last year and that's what I paid, everybody know the economy is shifting. We're operating right now and things are flux. They're in flux and they are moving at a very high and frequent cadence. And so this is the time for you to evaluate and go back and look. Listen, I made that price point and I'm committed to it. I'm not saying throw down where you have written contracts and you've said you committed to that. But I'm saying also look at, can we renegotiate it? Because that price isn't working for me now. Or giving them fair warning that on the end of this particular term, when it expires, I'm going to keep my word. I'm going to do what I said because I believe in that. I operate from that. I'm going to keep what I said because I recognize you're in business too. But when we get back in the next 6 months, when we come back to look at this in the next 3 months, when we come back to look at this in November, in preparation for making sure our contracts are settled and ready for the first of the year, I'm going to be looking to renegotiate. These are the kind of conversations that you have now. And lastly, for the day, build your reserves. You want to talk about building your reserves for stability? That is strategic. That is not something that you do as an optional. Every organization ought to have some reserves. Listen, you might not be able to put $1 million aside. You might not be able to put, again, today, $1,000 aside. But if you can put down $200 for an emergency, that is a start. If you can put away $100 for an emergency, that is a start. Every organization needs some reserves. That is not optional. It is necessary. Why? Because having reserves provides stability during the slow season. Having something set aside. Even the scripture talks about consider the ant. When it is the season, when everything is flourishing and everything is growing, it puts something away because it knows the season is going to change at some point. At some point, things are going to shift. At some point, the wind is going to blow another way. And you want to be ready for that. You don't want to be caught up by surprise. So here, flexibility during transitions. When you have a reserve, it gives you flexibility during transition. You set yourself up to win. So here, if you don't have it yet, start building it today. If you don't have it yet, start building it today. And lastly, we want to document. You cannot document. Rather, you cannot scale what you have not written down and document. These goes back again to having procedures in place. Having your standard operating procedures in place, having your budget in place. You cannot scale what you have not written down in order to track. So here you have that kind of dependency, and dependency limits your growth when it's not written down. So here you need to document your financial procedures, your approval process, your reporting structures, and your operating workflow. So we have had a great day today as we talked about making sure that we have the process in order to manage our profit. These systems will protect our money. These systems will help us retain our solvency and have stability within our organization and within our ministries. So we hope you've gained today for your lunchtime Monday and your lunchtime learning. This is Money Monday. Again, I'm your host, Pastor Tawana Grant, and I thank you all for joining us again. I see Pastor Candelia out there, little lady. I see others who joined us here on the Juice Radio show here, Yo-Yo K. Thank you, Lady Virgo. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you all. Again, if you're just joining us for the first time, continue to join us on Money Monday at 12 noon for your lunchtime learning, where we're continuing to share information that can help you grow in every area of your life. This information can be applicable and applied whether you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or a ministry leader. Thank you for joining us again. Peace and blessings to you.